So I'm Jim York. I'm a executive and team coach, primarily focusing in lean and agile practices and how we might use those to benefit ultimately customer needs. I'm also a business owner. I'm a certified enterprise coach and a certified team coach and a certified Scrum trainer, those guide level certifications from the Scrum Alliance. My company is called Foxhedge, small consultancy here in the United States, but we work globally. I've had the privilege over the last few decades, let's say, to both be a team member in the trenches, building applications, essentially playing all roles that you might possibly imagine on a team. Also been, the product owner on the team, Scrum Master, over time, I've had experience building teams and, eventually shifted into more of a coaching role. And that's been pretty much my focus for the last couple of decades as a coach, helping organizations and teams and individuals within those organizations make improvements that are important to themselves. So we've got probably about 15 minutes here to talk about one concept that I think is critically important to you if you're interested in improvement, and that is learning loops. And specifically, I'm looking at it through the lens of an agile coach and how you can use learning loops to help you help your teams and help the individuals and the organizations that you serve. So I'd like to start with just a simple question, and that is, are we learning yet? We invest a lot of time and energy into developing skills and competencies in Agile, and effective Agile coaches bring a wealth of knowledge and experience and skills. However, every team and every coaching situation is unique, and cookie cutter solutions seldom, if ever, work. Over the years, I've come to discover that Agile is not about solving what we know. It's about knowing what we solve. And to know what we need to solve, we've got some figuring out to do. By their very nature, the environments where we apply Agile are full of unknowns. Our Agile teams are not simply cranking out yet another widget. They are creating innovative solutions in dynamic and changing environments. To succeed in an environment full of unknowns, our teams have to embark on a journey of learning. So reacting quickly and pivoting when appropriate is not enough. Our teams must be smarter and better informed today than they were yesterday, and smarter and better informed tomorrow than they are today. So how does a team get smarter and better informed? They activate learning loops. And just not any kind of learning loop. They activate what's called double loop learning.
Jim, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. People are asking if we're supposed to see slides.
No, you're not seeing slides, not yet.
Okay.
I do not work in slides. So my apologies to those who were expecting to see some slides. You're not going to see slides. However, you are going to see some drawings. So, and I'm going to share my screen right now.
Okay.
So I need to just do a little magic here in Zoom. I'm going to move your faces around on my monitors here. And Inga, if you could just give me a double thumbs up if you see now an iPad with basically a blank screen that says double loop learning and Chris Argyris at the top.
Yes, we'll see.
All right, excellent. All right, so I'm going to switch over here to my iPad, make it a little bit bigger so it's easier for you to see. So double loop learning is a term that was coined by Chris Argyris in the 1970s. And double loop learning describes a learning approach that challenges our mental models and assumptions. So in contrast to single loop learning, where inputs and processes result in reliable outputs, double loop learning goes further with an additional check to see if the output created results in the desired outcome. So I'm going to draw a simple systems diagram with inputs going into a process and leading to an output. Now, if you use Agile processes, if you use a framework such as Scrum, this should look fairly familiar. You go into a sprint planning meeting and you decide on a set of work that you're going to do. And then over the period of a time box, typically about 2 weeks for most Scrum teams, in the sprint, they transform those inputs into outputs, things that actually work for customers. And during that process, they're potentially struggling a little bit because typically they're building things that have never been built before. So there's some discovery that's going on, but the goal that they established on coming into the sprint planning meeting of building this particular set of features, that's the expectation when we arrive at the sprint review, is that those features will in fact be done. And we try over and over during the sprint to make that happen. And anytime we run a test and we discover that the thing that we're trying to build isn't working, we have to keep trying, because we have to arrive at that sprint review having completed the work. So this is a single loop. So an example of a single loop learning, taking it out of an agile context perhaps, is a light switch. So let's imagine that we've got a requirement, a task where we're supposed to build a light switch. So you flip the switch one way and the lights go on, you flip it the other way and the lights go off. So the output of the flipping the light switch is either lights on or lights off. So a quick test can validate the proper functioning of the switch. If the test fails, we work to correct the defective switch until it functions properly. So this build, test, fail, build, test, pass is the single loop in single loop learning. Now in double loop learning, once we have a working light switch, we can go further. So again, you're going to arrive at your sprint review, for example, in Scrum, having completed the work. With the light switch, with it switched on, we can then ask the people in the room where the light switch is installed if the brightness and the other qualities of the light that result from flipping the switch to the on position is satisfactory to their needs. So this is the activation of the double loop. So we're going to ask the customer, what do they think about it? And the feedback that results from this double loop results in learning that then challenges the assumption that a simple on-off light switch design is adequate to meet the user's needs. So the hypothesis that we had in the beginning is now challenged by having built the light switch and asked the customer what they think about it. So this is the double loop. So by asking for feedback for fit on purpose, we can learn about the user's desire for things like light intensity, temperature, color, and so forth, much of which is informed by what the user wishes to do in the lighted room. If the team had simply taken direction to make an on-off light switch, they might succeed in creating the light switch, but completely fail to meet the customer's actual need. The shift from focus from output to outcome, the double loop learning, enables the team to iteratively evolve the light switch to be a better fit for the customer's actual need. An agile coach engaging with their team faces a similar situation. So coaches help teams get better, and better describes some future state. And since we can't know the future, any hypothesis of what is better is not proven until we've tested. So for example, a team might set a goal to achieve competency in an agile practice, such as continuous integration. But until the team develops and effectively applies their new competency, they lack evidence that the output of having an effective continuous integration process results in the desired outcome. The customer probably doesn't care much about a team's ability to continuously integrate. They may care more about getting the product they need when they need it, which likely requires that the team develop competencies in many more practices that support this outcome than just continuous integration by itself. So the coach helps the team activate learning loops, both single and double. So after all, you can't activate the double loop without successfully mastering the single loop. If you arrive at the sprint review having not created that tangible increment of the product that can be experienced by the customer, you're not going to get that double loop. So you have to first master the single loop, the reliable discipline of taking on something and successfully arriving at an inspection point with something that can be seen, experienced, and reacted to by the customer. So a team's learning journey is punctuated with a series of interconnected and interrelated loops. So I want to flip to another page here and show these different learning loops that are going on. So the first one is the product. So bear with me. This is a more complex drawing. So this, I need to do that again. Apologize. There we go. Let me get this to span out a little bit. There we go. So the first thing is going to be the product. And as we're building the product, we're learning as we go. So I'm going to make this into a cycle, just a learning loop as we go. So that cycle of learning, we are going to go through again and again and again as we're building things and we're showing them to customers. They will react to that, and we'll learn from that reaction, and we will take that feedback and we will use that to inform what it is that we're going to do next related to the product. So the second learning loop is about the process. So the things that we're building, these things have not been created before. So whatever process that we have in place has not been proven to be a process that is adequate to create those features. So as we discover adaptations that we need to make to our process, we then improve our process. And again, this continues and repeats itself over and over again. Every time we build a new feature, we're learning more about what we need to do to effectively build that feature. And again, these are things typically that we've not built before. So we're going through a learning loop on product. We're going through a learning loop also on process. And you can see there's an intersection between these two things because they're very related. Then the third is the people dimension. So we form a team of people who need to learn how to work together. And they also need to learn, whether they're the right people with the right skills and the right experience to accomplish the nature of the work that's in front of them. And since the product is being discovered as we go, what is needed for the product also changes and is evolving. So the people that we need today may not be the same people with the same skills that we need tomorrow. So the people dimension, we have to figure out who it is that we need, with what skills, what knowledge, who do we need to engage with, and how do we build an effective relationship, human dynamic within that group of people so that they are effective in working with one another. So there's a, building of trust is probably the first thing that would be on the table for something that a team would need to discover how to do. And when I say the people, it's not just what's traditionally thought of as being the people who are coding or testing. It's the larger ecosystem. It's the product ecosystem. So it includes the customers, it includes strategists, it includes your leadership within the organization, as well as the people who build, support, maintain the product. And centric to all of this is a customer. So in the middle, we have that customer, and that customer has needs. And those needs are also often emergent. So that customer is also going through a learning loop. And as we are figuring out what is going on, we're going on this journey together. So we have this centric learning loop around the customer and the customer's emergent needs, and then the product and the process and the people that's all around that. So that is the context of what I wanted to share today. We've got about 5 minutes, I believe, Inga, to do a little Q&A if anyone has any questions or comments that they'd like to make on what I've shared this morning. Or this afternoon for you, I believe.
Yeah, so anybody who's brave to turn on their microphones and ask. Or I will start. At least I don't hear anybody, but okay. I have a question. So in a real life, Do you think we should start all this learning loops simultaneously at the same time, or there should be some kind of initiation stage? I don't know at which one. How to do this in practice?
Yeah, so in practice, I got asked this question relatively recently. I was doing a discussion about product owners, and I was asked by the interviewer, what is your first piece of advice for a product owner? And I thought about it for a moment, because the product owners range from being new to the job as well as people who've been at it for decades. The role product owner was created in 1993, so we've had a little bit of time for people to develop some competencies and skills in that space, but there are people that come new into the job today. So to give a single piece of advice is a bit of a challenge. But Inga, what I responded to that question was, know your customer. Know your customer. And I think that answer also applies here. I think that is the touchstone, that is the North Star, that is the thing that is the glue that holds us together, is what is that customer? Who is that customer? What is their need? What is their job to be done? How does our product integrate into that job to be done? What is the next most important thing we can do on that product? We need to go through that series of questions in order to then discover what do we need to create that product in terms of process and people. So I think it all comes down to initially discovering who your target customer is, what is their job to be done, how does your product integrate into that job to be done, what's the next most important thing we should do on that product. And in Scrum, again, that informs a product backlog, which then has a set of items at the very top that are the most important, most valuable items to work on. And that set of work that's at the top of that product backlog, that informs us what the product's going to be, in this next iteration. And it also informs what process we need to have in order to create that. It also informs who are the people that are needed in order to engage in the activities of creating and also supporting and maintaining and operating that product once it's in operation, once that customer is able to use it. And then, of course, that whole process then creates the opportunity, or it activates the learning loops, because as soon as you get something in front of a customer, then you discover how wrong we were, all of us, about what is who is the customer, what is their need, what is their job to be done. Everybody has a different perception of what this is, an interpretation of what they think it is. And we begin to discover, wow, we could certainly do better.
And how do you think teams and companies should manage, stubborn or some customers that are really like complicated and that have very, their needs are kind of either weird or very hard to accomplish?
Yeah, human beings are complex just by their very nature. So in order to sort that out, we have to activate those learning loops. So, and part of it is to do the learning loops rapidly and do them over and over and over again. So it's, even if what we do in the first iteration or the first sprint is completely wrong, that reveals to us that we were wrong. And it gives us something that can be established as the current state. And we can look at what a desired state is and then begin to think about what is the gap between what it currently is and what it is desired to be. And that gap informs, again, what is potentially the next step of the journey. So there's an old expression, when a customer doesn't know what they want, the customer says, just bring me a rock. Yeah, I don't know if this is an expression that is familiar, but it's bring me a rock. And it's like, well, what good will a rock do you? And it says, I can tell you everything that is wrong with the rock. If you just bring me a rock, I'll tell you why it's not the right thing for what it is that I need. So I think that's part of it, Inga, is simply to do something to create that product increment, so that the customers have something that they can react to and tell you what they like and what they don't like about it. And in the absence of that, it's just all discussion. It's all creativity in the mind and not creativity in reality. We've got to make something real.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions actually in the chat. So the first one is from Anna, and she's asking how to implement double loop in large complex solutions. I assume that coming back to basics, idea, architecture, and revising it often can be pretty hard in the real life situation.
Yeah. So in the real life situation, we still need to break down those we call them big hairy problems, right? We have to break them down to something that's smaller and more digestible. And agility does not mean that you don't make mistakes. What we try to do is avoid expensive mistakes to the best we can. So, but even so, you can make very expensive mistakes in Agile. We try to maintain solutions that are flexible and extensible and preserve that ability to pivot. But sometimes we do make decisions where we have we've made it very difficult to make that pivot. So we want to avoid, doing too much investment in something before we start activating some feedback that we're going in the right direction. So again, it's an incremental journey and it never ends. People think these big complex problems is like, well, we've got to come up with the perfect solution. Well, the problem is the perfect solution becomes obsolete in 5 minutes because the nature of the environment that we're working in is full of unknowns and it's dynamic and it's changeable. So we can never be perfect. What's more important is not the seeking of perfection. It's our ability to take in new information and then act upon that new information quickly and remediate whatever the problem is that we're trying to solve. It's not a matter of once and done. It's not that. We're continually trying to create something that meets that customer's needs. So again, understanding who they are and what their job to be done is, understanding how the product fits into that, all of that is critical in doing this. It's just one piece at a time, and frankly, we'll never get it right. That's why continuous improvement is a hallmark of Agile. We wouldn't need to continuously improve if it was a once and done.
Yeah, we actually had a very nice discussion in the chat about leaders. And Audran is asking how to light with leaders who put their own opinion higher than the customer feedback. Before you answer, I just let you know that Rasa wrote a comment that leaders who are not listening are not leaders.
Well, there we go. Well, there's an expression that I use all the time, and I teach and coach a lot of teams in Scrum. And the thing I warn them about is Scrum is ruthless at revealing the truth.
True.
So if you have a leader who holds themselves higher than the customer, that will be visible to everyone. If you implement, core principles in Agile, things like visibility, transparency, openness, courage, all of those things, if you implement those things, the truth will be revealed. So sometimes that can reveal things where, wow, we're really good at this. And other times it reveals, whoa, we're not so good at this. And if it reveals that leaders are not true leaders, that will be visible to everyone. So what you do about that is another question entirely. And that's why this is so complex, because human beings are they're complex beings, and in many ways they're unpredictable. So the truth will be revealed. What it is that people within that organization, what customers do about that, that's really up to them to decide what to do.
Okay, we're running out of time actually. Yeah. So Jim, thank you so much. It was very good